So let's start with traveling because you just traveled and you're obviously doing low oxalate, but you also have to handle low histamine, so there's lots of things that are afoot, I'm sure, when you have to travel with your family. So why don't you give us a little idea of what you did as you were getting yourselves ready and getting out the door?
So yeah, I mean, it's definitely a undertaking when we travel because I have a really low tolerance to a lot of the things, just all in general, like the air in a lot of the rooms and like the sheets and the cleaning products and like all of that stuff. So I feel like I like have to take my whole house with me when I travel. But I do tend to bring, I have a set of like just sheets that I tend to bring. They're like really small and compact. And so even if I don't like remake the whole bed, I end up at least like covering the bottom sheet and then using a different blanket for me. And we travel, everybody travels with their pillows. So we go in with like 5 pillows every time we check in somewhere. And then I have a small mini air filter, air purifier that I travel with too. And I put that up in all of the places. And I also am pretty wild on reading the reviews to make sure that like nobody says anything about obviously bed bugs, but also mold, because that's a big sensitivity for me. Or if there's like smoke smell or like anything that's at the reviews. But I always check for bed bugs when I get in there, but I hope everybody does that. Like you lift up the sheets and the mattress and you check all the folds and you look for little apple seeds, and because those totally freak me out. But then aside from that, obviously bringing like with me my own personal toiletries that we like include some of the topical minerals. Like I always have like a magnesium roll on and spray and castor oil. And I bring a lot of the kids supplements. Yes, yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, I have to bring the magnesium oil because otherwise I do bring my red light mat because I bought a converter that I can plug into my car, that I can set it in my car on my like seat when I'm driving. So I have like the PEMF and the red light, and it's heated too. So that's been a good addition. I did purchase grounding mats, but I've never actually used them. So I use the PEMF mat as a good thing. And this time I bought a collapsible foot bath and I traveled with like mini jars of like Epsom baking soda and cream of tartar. And I packed that in a little, so it was like a little compact thing because we drove down to Florida. So always minerals too. I always take like my electrolytes, little minerals. And yeah, I feel like that's a good start of the things I definitely always bring. I definitely take my kids supplements too. So like they'll have like calcium and they have like a bifido strain probiotic that if I need it, I feel like I'll just take their things because I'm bringing them anyways, and a chewable magnesium that I use too. So I tend to share just so I can like compact what we bring, and cell salts. I do bring a good amount of cell salts with me as well.
So when it comes to traveling, I think you've laid out a pretty good list, especially for people who have a lot of histamine issues. Although, yeah, when it comes to traveling, yeah, do check for bed bugs. But yeah.
Yeah, that's well, and I take herbs. I forgot to mention that. I do take
Oh, okay.
herbs too, like just some basics of like ginseng and then some catnip just in case I can't sleep. And there's just a couple random like handful of things that I will bring too. And but definitely thinking more of an environmental aspect. And if I control the diet and I can try and help mitigate some of the environmental stuff and then support my minerals, then I feel like I can take a little bit less of the whole arsenal, because that's the problem is I end up like throwing in like all the things before I leave. So yeah,
Yeah.
trying to keep it like
Making the
less.
whole arsenal is not fun. I would say something similar. I don't have a family where we're as susceptible to the environmental stuff, and we like to get on planes. So that gives you a lot less options in terms of some of the management. But one of the things I'll say for sure that we have done since my kids were little is we take food that we take onto the plane, and I will do something really simple, like I will saute chicken breasts that I've cubed. I will take red pepper strips, or I will take other raw veggies like bok choy stems, things that you can eat and crunch on and don't require immediate refrigeration. And I will not worry if I travel with a bit of chicken that's been cooked before we got on the plane and then is maybe at room temperature for a little while. I will try to keep it sealed as long as possible so that I'm not introducing any bacteria, but I'm going to be comfortable with eating it like that. Some people may not be able to do that, but we're able to. So I will carry that kind of stuff with us because you honestly do not have any idea what you might end up being fed on the plane. And this way, at least, nobody's hungry. So we will either bring food to eat on the plane, or if we have to be at the airport long in advance, So we often travel internationally because I have family overseas. My in-laws and my husband's sister are all over in Holland. So that's a 7-hour overnight flight for us. We will have eaten a good meal, low ox, low his, blah, 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 before we ever get on that plane. Now we do our best. We might order a gluten-free meal and kind of keep our fingers crossed. But if something comes on the plate that we can't eat, we don't eat it. And the other thing I may have with me would be not so much now that my kids are older, but when they were littler, I developed a bar. And I'm not sure I've posted this recipe recently. So this might be one of those things that we need to have on the group. I named it after the client who I developed it for. So I call it a Roland bar. And he had the whole ball of wax, problems with oxalate, problems with histamine, problems with salicylate. We had to bounce around our ingredients. We had to do a whole bunch of things. And in the end, I ended up with this bar based on kind of a granola bar where you used green peas, split green peas with oats, and then sort of a very carefully managed set of ingredients so that you end up with something that's very portable. So one of the things that we would carry with us are things like that because they were dry, very simple, wrap them in something. Back in the day, I would just use saran wrap. Now I don't do that. Now I hardly know what to take these things in anymore because it seems like everything does something. But again, I might resort to the plastic or glass containers that we used to have, which had like snap-on lids. And this is a great portable thing because it can be at room temperature for a long time and you don't have to worry about it, and low histamine ingredients. So I will make note to myself that we're going to have the Roland bar be up on the group again because very, very handy, very limited ingredients. It's tweaked to be as nutritious as possible. And this client at the time when I met him was severely underweight. He was doing anything he could to try and keep weight on. I was actually making these bars for him and shipping them to him. So it was crazy expensive for him, but he considered it worthwhile because he was getting some nutrient density. I put in some protein powder so we can have this conversation as well. And his original recipe used whey protein because he could tolerate that. Not everybody can. I think we also tried rice-based protein. That's low oxalate. It's also low histamine. It's also low salicylate. So that's not a bad option. But I was trying with him to get as nutrient dense as possible. So we had some protein from the split peas. We had some protein from the oats. So you had that vegan kind of, at least your basic amino acids. So I added whey protein because I really wanted more nutrient density. I wanted some minerals in there. Unbelievably, I substituted for sun butter, which is sunflower seed butter, with sunflower lecithin to get zero oxalate, but the smell and the taste of the sun butter because there's some sunflower seed taste to sunflower lecithin. Yeah, it was some fancy footwork. I'm not sure I can name off all the ingredients, but I'd be happy to post that for people who are traveling because it's very portable. And that's part of what you need to do. Like if you're driving, it's great, but if you're getting on a plane, you have to have something that's going to get through the scanners. You're not going to trip off all the alarms and, that you can carry with you and it's okay. This is something that we used to take. And for us, I have what I consider to be a slimmed down version of our supplements. So I would always travel with minerals like Ali was talking about, but I would also travel with a low dose B complex just to make sure that we were touching all the bases, and often with a little bit of Epsom salt. So if somebody had a problem, we could do an Epsom salt bath, but that gets difficult if you're carrying a lot on a plane. So things like magnesium oil, this is magnesium chloride, but it's still very supportive to the body. This is something where you can take a small amount of it. This is actually 8 ounces, but you could put it in a 4-ounce bottle or maybe take 150 milliliters of it. It's tons for you to be taking with you, unless you're on a very long trip. And that will give you some mineral support as well. And we would always travel with antihistamines. Now, taking meds is nobody's favorite thing. It's not mine either. But if you need a rescue situation, something unexpected has happened and you're really not feeling well, then I lean back into a published protocol from Dr. Lawrence Afrin, who's an MD in the States. He wrote a book called Never Bet Against Occam. It's a big book of case studies. So I read through these things because I wanted to understand what he was doing for people who were suspected mast cell cases. And he puts 100% of the people he works on as a first protocol taking Claritin twice a day, and Pepsid AC twice a day. And it's a very helpful protocol because you're dealing with covering all of your H1 histamine receptors. So those ones will be quiet. But in addition, all your H2 histamine receptors. So those will be quiet. H1s are the ones we typically associate with seasonal allergies. So the stuff that happens in your face and your skin. But H2 histamine receptors, some of them are in the gut. And so interestingly enough, Pepsid AC is sold as an over-the-counter heartburn remedy, but it's really an antihistamine. So we would take those with us in case something bad happened. So minerals were our first thing if something bad happened. So people would take minerals if they weren't dealing with something well, but then we had that as backup if we needed it. I do travel with things like, now this is a yucky brand, don't buy this brand, Calamine Lotion. And because this is based on minerals, and it's very good if you've got something happening topically, but it's also going to provide more minerals to your body because we're going to talk more about this. This is less a barrier and more a covering. So think of it more like a cloth cover on a Chesterfield, for instance, or on a couch versus a leather cover on a couch. A leather cover is a barrier, but a cloth cover is not. We're basically covered in fancy cloth called skin. It will absorb into it what's on it. And so that's something we can use to our advantage. So I would travel with things like Calamine Lotion because sometimes people have topical reactions going on, or they have topical things that are happening in response to food. So we travel with stuff like that. I try to limit how many liquids that I take, but definitely I'm going to go with minerals. I'm definitely going to go with a B complex. I might take one antioxidant. Usually if I'm going to take one, I'm going to take CoQ10. And I might take one rescue supplement. And usually if I'm going to take a rescue supplement, it's either going to be MSM or it's going to be NAC. NAC being N-acetylcysteine. Those two are very good at helping the body to detox. And so if we're dealing with something that's messing us up, especially if the thing that's messing us up is oxalate, we are going to need support to the liver because it may not be doing detox as well as possible when oxalate's affecting it. And NAC supports the mitochondria. So CoQ10 and NAC are a pairing that I'll often take. And then I stop. We've got lots of other things that we sometimes take. I've got, like most of us, a supplement graveyard of things at my home. And there are some things that I keep for rescue, but I don't take every rescue thing with me. I don't take every supplement with me. So minerals, a B complex, NAC, CoQ10. That's probably the most basic set of things that I take with me. And then the antihistamines. Beyond that, I try to eat simply. I bet you Hallie's thinking that too. Eat as simple as you can, because the more complicated the dish, the more likely there is something in there that you don't realize, or, there's more opportunity for an oops. So grilled meat, simple veggies. And because I often eat a fairly carnivore lifestyle, I don't have a problem with having like meat and then a salad, and then I might dress it with lemon juice and olive oil and a bit of salt. So I eat very simply when I'm away, and I don't make the food the centerpiece. I make the experience the centerpiece of the holiday. So I know that's a change of approach for a lot of people because many of us are foodies. But the challenge with being too much of a foodie is getting in trouble. So that's where your rescues come in, because sometimes we make an oops. And that's also where your minerals might come in. So I have been known, just so everybody knows, I'm just a regular human. I have been known to go with my husband out on a date, and there's a local chocolatier, and they also have a little coffee shop. So I will go and I will have one. This is the hardest thing in the world, but my husband helps there. He says, no, won't buy you more than one. I will have one exquisite truffle, usually with a cream center, so that I'm not getting too much of the chocolate. I will have that with a little cup of probably an espresso. I'll probably have some kind of an espresso drink with that. And I will take a mineral supplement when I take the first bite of that truffle. So there are ways to cheat, if you will. I wouldn't recommend doing them too often, but when I'm on holidays, I'm likely going to have at least some kind of cheat. So those minerals are also going to be something I'm going to use with that. When you take minerals concurrent, there was some debate in the research for a while about what the timing was to take a mineral. I think I'm pretty solid now on it should be concurrent with the food that you're taking in. So as close to when you're eating the thing as possible. I mean, anytime you've had too much oxalate, take the minerals afterwards. Like, don't not take them. thinking that you're not doing any good. You're always going to help. But if you can take a mineral supplement concurrent with the food that you're eating, which maybe is not so good for you, that will give you the best chance that you bind the oxalate in that food. Now, that won't protect you from histamine, it won't protect you from salicylate, but at least it'll protect you from oxalate. And some of this can be a juggling act if you have other issues going on at the same time.